let's talk about Israel, and let's talk about how the Israeli lobby kind of smear people and defame them and destroy their public image and so on. And also how they apply pressure on others, because this story that I'm about to tell you is it's multifaceted and very important. So RFK Jr., right, Robert Kennedy Jr., who is John F. Kennedy's niece, right? He's running for president in the Democratic Party. And there's this speech he gave about NATO, which I'll play in a second, and it's very good. But there's something afterwards that happened about Israel, which we'll also discuss. Let's just start with the speech because it went viral.
We told the Russians in 1991 and 1992 repeatedly and in writing, although not in a signed treaty, that if they removed the 400 troops from Germany and allowed Germany to reunite under NATO, that we would not move NATO 1 inch to the east. We've since then moved it 1,000 miles to the east and 14 countries. Not only that, but we have put Aegis missile systems which can launch nuclear missiles in Romania and Poland, right on the Russian border. The Russians, Bill Burns, who was the U.S. ambassador to Russia at that time and is now the head of the CIA, sent a famous memo in which he said, if you moved NATO into the Ukraine, it is a red line that cannot be crossed. And we need to put ourselves in the Russians' shoes and actually understand. My uncle always said, you have to put yourself in your adversary's shoes.
I mean, once again, credit where credit is due. He nailed it. Everything he said here is correct. And I think it's all the more important. Why does he bring up his uncle? Because you have to remember this Cuban Missile Crisis. It's his uncle, right? JFK, who was in the middle of it, right? So the Cuban Missile Crisis, I often refer to as an example of where, how would the U.S. react if Russia was moving weapons or forming some kind of military alliance next door? And we have a historical precedent. In any case, this is a fantastic speech. He nailed it every point, and he took the words right out of my mouth. Every single thing he said, I've told you guys a million times. Now, afterwards, a few days later, I see him, RFK, right? RFK Jr. He gets into trouble because he posted something on Twitter. He said that he likes Roger Waters, who's from Pink Floyd, well, that wasn't allowed because right now everyone is going after Roger Waters for having the same opinions about what's happening in Ukraine and for criticizing Israel. Okay, this rabbi, he posts a long thread and he's saying, Robert Kennedy Jr. came to my house for dinner and we discussed Roger Waters, and I explained to him, right? So the rabbi here is saying, Bobby told me he had no idea that Waters was such a vicious anti-Semite. And when he studied the issue and the facts, he immediately deleted the tweet. I believed Bobby, and I thanked him for his repudiation of Waters. How tragic it is for Waters to have his legacy as an anti-Semite now overtake his legacy as an accomplished artist. Okay? I mean, to me, when I'm reading this and I'm looking at this photograph, it looks like something the mafia would post. Like, I explained to Bobby that we don't like Mr. Waters and how anti-Semitic Mr. Waters is, right, Bobby? What is this thing, man? It's like a hostage, he's been taken hostage or something. Now, this was bad enough, okay? This was bad enough. So basically, they got him to delete the tweet. Now, even more interesting, right? Robert Kennedy Jr. went on System Update, which is Glenn Greenwald's show, and he asked him about this, right? He asked him about Israel. He asked him why he deleted this tweet where he praised Roger Waters. And let's just watch the clips a little bit, okay?
Everything has a historical context in Israel. And if you look at why we don't have a two-state solution in Israel, which everybody now says they want, But both in 1947 and 1947, 1948, and then again in 2001, it was the Palestinian leadership that walked away from a two-state solution and pledged itself to the destruction of the Jewish people. Oh, and that, that's a very, very clear history. And I think at a time when they had a very, very generous solution on the table.
I want to interrupt, well, not interrupt, but comment so badly, but let me just, here's the rest of the clip.
We need to have the same standard for judging Israel as we judge other Arab countries. We should, and Israel is going into the West Bank and killing children. It's never doing that deliberately. Never.
What?
And nobody has ever said it is.
Well, a lot of people have said it. A lot of people have said it is. But let me just ask you, because I just want to focus the.
In all of those other countries, it is the deliberate policy of those countries to attack and target civilians and to kill them.
Okay, so
wow. He said Israel is not going into the West Bank and killing Palestinian children. They literally just did that. So I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. You have this boy, a 2.5-year-old boy, 2-year-old boy, was shot dead by Israel just 2 days ago, right? Just a few days ago. So this is on excuse me, it's 6th of June. So, a little over a week. It doesn't matter. This is in the West Bank, and Israel doing exactly what RFK Jr. says Israel doesn't do. That's the boy who was killed, right? Mohammed Tamimi. So they were using live ammunition, the Israelis, and they said, "Oh, our lives were in danger." Blah blah blah. It's a complete lie, I mean, even if you accept everything that RFK Jr. said, like you love Israel and you think that the Israeli Defense Forces is the most moral army in the world, by their own standards, by the Israelis' own so-called standards, they can't justify this because they are not under threat. And they're running around just like randomly firing and then killing a 2-year-old boy. How do you justify that? You even by their own standards. But the problem is that the Israelis, this is their standard. They do this all the time. If they don't do it today, they'll do it next year with when they go and bomb Gaza. They're always killing children and women and men, everyone. They're killing Palestinians on a daily basis. On a daily basis, the fact that they're being killed is not even the only issue. Let's say the Israelis are killing 0 Palestinians a day, right? They're not killing any Palestinians. What does that mean? That it's okay to occupy Palestine? Every moment they're whining and screaming about Ukraine and Russia occupying Ukraine and Russia annexing Ukraine. Okay, so what about Israel? This is an issue that is much, much, much older than Russia, Ukraine. Why don't we talk about that? Why isn't this on the news? Why don't the BBC and Sky News talk about this boy who's been killed? Why doesn't RFK Jr. talk about this boy, Mohammed Tamimi, who was shot dead, a 2-year-old boy? Well, what does he have to do with this? Did he walk away from the 1947 reasonable solution that was on the table, according to him? What does this mean? This is what is so. I'm glad that Glenn interrupted him, or tried to, because he wouldn't let him, because people are criticizing Israel. Even these NGOs, which usually do nothing, have started to pivot and admit, okay, Israel is apartheid. It's more than apartheid, but even they are saying it. Even Amnesty International and all of this, right? So the truth is starting to come out in public, and the point here is that you see the Democrats, which I was telling you about a moment ago, how they're hijacking, Pride Month and so on. When it comes to Israel, once again, they are no different from the Republican candidates, right? And I have always said this to you, if you want to know what a candidate is about, whether they're running for president or they're running for, in local and state elections, just ask them what their foreign policy is and just ask them if they support Israel. That's all you need to know, man. Because you can tell, if they have this imperialist thinking or from that, okay? Because Israel is the Anglo-Saxons' way of splitting up the Middle East creating a sphere of influence in the Middle East and of occupation in the Middle East, right? That's what purpose Israel serves. Why do you think the United States, out of all the countries on earth, decides to give Israel well, now it's Ukraine that's taken more, but on a yearly basis? Why out of all these places on earth does the United States pour so much money into Israel? Why did the United Kingdom help create Israel, promising a so-called Jewish state and then handing over the Palestinian mandate to the Israelis? Why did the United Kingdom and the United States do this? They did this because they wanted to fracture the Arab world, and they wanted to make sure that you were not going to have an Arab state or an Arab unified state in any size or any capacity. Do you understand? It's very, very important to grasp this. So nothing has changed since then. And, the fact that he is RFK Jr., immediately he throws Roger Waters under the bus. And then he takes this mafia style photo here that I showed you with the rabbi, right? God, this is so cringy. It's so cringy, right? And the fact that he didn't even write this. RFK Jr. didn't even write this. It came from the guy on the left, right? He's saying, I explained to Bobby that we don't like Roger Waters because he's a vicious anti-Semite. Right, Bobby? And then he's defending Israel now. And he's saying, oh, Israel is, the Arabs are committed to the destruction of the Jewish people. That's what he said, right? What? Excuse you? First of all, get out. Please get out of here. Don't come at me with this ignorance. He's departing from this thinking that, well, you have Arabs on one side and then you have Jews. Well, what does that even mean? You have Arab Jews and Arab Christians and Arab this and Arab that. You got Arabs of every flavor. Okay, it's not. These are not separate people or things, right? What the issue here is, you have Jewish settlers from Europe that are coming to Palestine and taking the land and doing this with the support of the UK and the US. That's a completely different thing. And the fact that he, and no one in mainstream, they continue to refuse to acknowledge this dynamic, and they keep trying to take European anti-Semitism, where Europe, the Nazis were killing Jews and ethnically cleansing Jews. They were doing that, and then in England and in Spain, you had centuries of anti-Semitism in Europe, and then trying to take all of this guilt and all of this European anti-Semitism and then dump it on the Arabs every time they talk about Palestine. That's what he's doing, and what everybody in politics and in the media do in the West. They always try to make you think that the Arabs and the Palestinians are anti-Semites. No. What is? Do you even know what this word Semite means? Semite could be anyone. It could be an Assyrian. It could, right? So Syriacs. It could be Jews. It could be Arabs. Anyone from this region who is a native to this region, to the Middle East, and speaks a Semitic language, qualifies as a Semite. European settlers, not really. I mean, just because they're, just because you persecuted them and tried to murder them doesn't mean that the rest of the world thinks like that. And certainly not, okay for you to dump that responsibility from Germany or whoever onto Palestinians. That's disgusting. But that's what he's doing, right? And this outrageous claim, they're committed to the destruction of the Jewish people. Wow, it's like he's trying to write some kind of garbage novel. He's just making up fantasies. And I told you before, when the Spaniards in Spain, they kicked out the Arabs, right? The Reconquista, they call it. The Spaniards kicked out the Muslims, and they kicked out the Jews, right? And who did the Jews go to? The Jews of Spain for refuge. They went to the Arab Muslims, right? In Andalusia. So we're talking about this region specifically, south of Spain. So if they're, quote unquote, according to RFK Jr., the Arabs are committed to the, quote unquote, destruction of the Jewish people, why did they give them refuge? This guy makes no sense. He's historically and politically illiterate. And I'm so shocked that he can understand the NATO issue and the Ukraine issue, but he doesn't understand this issue. I can't believe that. This guy comes from a reputable family, right? The Kennedy family. Wow. Right? JFK, one of the most popular presidents in the United States. One of the most famous American presidents in the world in history. That's your uncle, man. Show some respect to yourself and your uncle and your family. Acknowledge the facts. Stop, reinventing history. And he says 1947. Yeah, it's the Palestinians' fault because they walked away from a reasonable resolution. I think he called it, right. He said the word reasonable. No, it's not reasonable. If I come into your house, your nice Kennedy, villa, and I start carving up your house, and I say, well, you can have the drawing room. I'll take the bathrooms, and maybe you can have this balcony, but I'll take the living room as well, and the kitchen and all. And then I tell you, here's the plan. Sign it. That's reasonable? First of all, what the hell am I doing in your house? Right? Who the hell am I to impose this plan on you? And then you have people say, well, the United Nations came up with it. So what? What legitimacy does the United Nations have to do that? Palestine is not even a fucking member state. They didn't even give the Palestinians membership. They just have observer status, barely. But the Israelis get to be a full member. You have the UK, the US, Russia, China, and France. For some reason, France, who's had them in a power for centuries, getting veto power and becoming permanent members on the United Nations Security Council. Based on what? The UN is good in many ways and has a lot of faults. So just because the UN proposed this, what does that mean? Of course they walked away from it. If I come to your house and I try splitting up your house, and you're also going to walk away from that, you're going to fucking kill me too. You're going to kick me out of your house. In the United States, in some states, I think Florida is one of them, right? They have these stand your ground laws, right? Like if someone, you're in your house and someone comes in your house, you can blast them away. It's your right to do that. It's your house. There's an old English saying that we have, and every man's home is his castle. Right? So that's where this thinking stems from, perhaps. But, and the Ukrainians get HIMARS, the Ukrainians get drones, everything to kick the Russians out of their homes. But the Palestinians, they're terrorists and this and that. Man, we are tired of this. I'm tired of explaining this. I'm tired of this. What do you think the Palestinians are feeling, man? They're tired of that. And the sad irony of him saying they don't go into the West Bank. Yeah, no, they do. They do. Roger Waters, I wanted to just say a couple of words about him because he's being subjected to, one of the most vicious campaigns in quite a while. So, he's a founding member of Pink Floyd, which is a very, very popular band, very successful. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's not exactly on good terms with the rest of them because I think one of the band members' wives started attacking him and so on. In any case, he's doing concerts on his own, right? As Roger Waters. And when he went to Berlin a few weeks ago, he did his concert as usual, and he likes to go on rants, right? And why not? By all means, please do. It's your, you have the mic and the podium. I'll play you a small clip and I'll tell you a bit more about why this is related and why it's important.
It hurts. I don't know if anyone's ever tried to cancel any of you. I've watched other people being cancelled. Like a couple of years ago, I watched Jeremy Corbyn be cancelled. That is what happened in 2019. And if it hadn't happened, we might have had the first decent Labour Prime Minister for a fucking
Oh, Jeremy Corbyn.
Okay. Anyway, I will be quick because I know you didn't come here to listen to this, but I didn't come here to tell you. If only I didn't have to tell you. If only these fuckers weren't trying to cancel me. But they are, and I'm not going to let them do it. I'm fighting back, all right?
Woo!
Oh, thank you.
Right, so he goes on and continues and talks about the Israeli lobby.
Now, this is the 81st show we've done, and we have done nothing but share our love for our fellow human beings, brothers and sisters, in all the places we've played, okay? So that's why I'm so pissed off about this Israeli lobby bullshit. Okay, so
one of the ways they've been doing that is as I mentioned, through RFK Jr. And, if you're going to run for president, you can't say anything nice about this guy. Another way they're doing it is they've launched a criminal investigation against him in Berlin, right? So basically people were complaining to the police, and then the police said, well, he's again, this law it's funny because they use this law to do anything they like in Germany, right? It's basically I think it was two reasons. They said incitement of hatred, but the other one that I meant is the one that they basically you're riling people up, right? You're riling the public up. And I think they did this with I forgot her last name, unfortunately, the German journalist Anna something. Lip, right? Was it Anna Lip? I did a video about her. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, they used the same thing against her, right? Like you're riling up the German people and the German public. Like you're trying to cause instability in the country. What the hell does that mean? This is so abstract and vague. It could mean anything, right? What does that mean? Am I shorting the market? Am I telling people to dance naked in the streets? What does this mean, riling up the public or trying to cause, instability? It's wild. But they're trying to do it against him, and they're saying that, he's an anti-Semite, he's a Jew hater, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's all because he's criticizing Israel. And I find this disgusting because the Israelis think that they can hijack being Jewish. And it's like, why do they, keep in mind, Zionism is barely 100 years old as a political movement. Why do they get to decide, what it means to be Jewish? And then of course use their influence, whether it's people in the Labour Party, as he was talking about, who are proudly supporters of Israel to attack Jeremy Corbyn, or whether in this case they attacked Roger Waters, and you saw how anyone praising him also gets attacked. It's kind of like sanctions, but with but in society, right? So they'll try to isolate someone and then attack anyone who has dealings with them, and then cut you off and make you feel alone. But I think the irony is that most people are they find Israel deplorable. Israel is not the representative of Jews. They don't get to just label their critics anti-Semites. It's outrageous. I mean, even Stanley Cohen and Miko Peled, who I've had on my show, who are Jews themselves, they also get called anti-Semites because they criticize Israel. This is madness. There's no end to this. Everyone is an anti-Semite all of a sudden. You are diluting the meaning of this word for people who really deserve it, like Nazis, KKK, like people with actual anti-Semitic policies and thinking, and now you're applying it as a blanket term on people who are not anti-Semites and who are just criticizing a political ideology. And this does a huge disservice, first of all, to everybody's critical thinking skills. It's an insult to everyone's intelligence, and also it does a huge disservice to the people who actually fight real anti-Semitism. You use it so much that the word means nothing anymore. That's what the Israeli lobby does. And, the fact that you have so many people in the United Kingdom, in the United States, who don't know their own history, and what role America and Britain have had in helping create and fund Israel, and what Israel does. This is shocking. This is really, really ignorance on a mass scale. It needs to be fixed, because they make the education system, the politicians make the education system, and the media, excuse me, they engineer them like this on purpose. So you don't know what your foreign ministry is doing. You don't know what your executive is doing. You don't know what the army is doing, or the intelligence services. You have no clue. And not just now, but also your own history. They want you to be ignorant. Don't allow them to make society don't allow them to dumb down society, because then you end up with things like this, where people who are speaking, truth to power and saying things that need to be said are quote unquote canceled, whatever the hell that means. The only people that need canceling are the ones that are murdering 2-year-old boys in the West Bank, or bombing Syria, or occupying Palestine, or invading countries and annexing them. Somehow, for some reason, we don't talk about that when the West does it or when Israel does it. But if it's Russia, we can talk about that all day.